All right, so I've heard this question a bunch of times. If there's so many Bible translations, how do we know they're all saying the same thing? Isn't it like a game of telephone? Aren't they all totally different? Are any of them valid? You've got so many different translations, they're just all different. You just pick whatever you want, right? I've heard this in the comment section. I've heard this from other people. But honestly, no, they're really not that different. So let me break that down. You see, when people hear that there are like a 50 bajillion translations out there, the NIV, the ESV, the King James, the NLT, and so on, I know it sounds a little sketchy at first, right? Like maybe they're all saying completely different stuff. But when you actually look into it, it's not like that at all. What we do have to look at is the core message. Is it the same across the board? And if you really sit down and if you take a verse, let's say you go on BibleHub.com and you line up all the verses together, you're going to see in even 20 different versions or 50 different versions that they're really not that different. It may just be a different way to say it. It may be a different way to paraphrase something, but the meaning is the same. The meaning does not change. So here's how it works. I really hate when people say that, oh, there's so many different versions of the Bible. There's not different versions. There's different translations. And all the translations come from the same original texts. So we're not taking 20 different versions of the Bible and making up our own. All of the different translations, or AKA versions, come from the exact same text. They all come from the original same text and copies that we have. Like the Old Testament comes from the ancient Hebrew and Aramaic manuscripts, and the New Testament comes from the Greek manuscripts. And scholars, who are really smart, nerdy people who have spent their whole lives studying these languages, they go back to the original texts to make the translations that we use today. What changes is not the message. The message isn't any different. It's not like if you go to the King James and they're going to say, well, Jesus died for your sins, and you go to the NLT and it says, no, he didn't. That's not what you're going to find at all. What actually changes is how the words are phrased. So it's just to help people understand better. It would be like saying, I went to the store with my mom versus, Tuesday, I went to the store with my mother. Okay, you still went to the store and you still went with your mom or your mother, whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thought. It's the same thing. There's really nothing different about what happened there. So some translations are more word for word, where they stick super close to the original sentence structure, which can be a little harder for people to understand because obviously the way people speak in another language is not the same way they may speak in English or Spanish or Hebrew or whatever. If you speak multiple languages, you know this. So I speak a lot of Spanish, and I also speak English, right? And I do know some words and phrases from other languages like Hebrew and French and, some Arabic and stuff like that. So if you break some of these sentences down, you're going to see if you translate it directly into English from another language, it's not really going to make sense. So that's why some translations are word for word. So that's stuff like the NASB or the ESV, and others are more thought for thought, which means they try to make it clearer in more modern everyday language. So that's where you get things like the NLT or the Message Bible, right? So here's a good example. Take John 3:16. You know that that's a super famous verse, right? For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, right? Now you compare translations. They might tweak the phrasing a little. The NIV says, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, versus the King James Version that says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And then the NLT says, for this is how God loved the world. He gave his one and only son. See, it's all the same thing. God loved the world so much that he gave Jesus. Different words, same meaning. You can say a lot of things in lots of different ways, but it still means the same thing. They're not changing the core message at all. They're just updating the language to make it more clear to different readers. So that whether you're a child, whether you're an adult, whether you're educated, whether you're uneducated, it's just what's easier to read for you, based on your generation, based on what, maybe you grew up on, based on how old you are, etc., based on your education level, will all depend on what type of version you prefer to use. It doesn't actually change anything. And here's the kicker. Scholars don't just put stuff out of their own head out of thin air. They've got thousands of ancient manuscripts to work with. Like, there are way more copies of the Bible's original text than any other ancient document. I'm talking thousands. So when they're translating, they're double checking everything against those manuscripts to make sure that it's all legit. Sure, there might be minor differences, like a word here or there, but nothing that changes the overall message. It's not like one version says Jesus walked on water and another version says Jesus jet skied across a lake. It doesn't say that. It's all the same. The meaning is the same. The message is the same. The meaning does not change. So the bottom line is, every solid Bible translation, whether it's the old school King James Version or something newer like the ESV or the NLT, comes from the same original texts and tells us the exact same story. The only real difference are the style and readability. If you like Shakespeare vibes, then you'll like the King James Version. I personally don't. I don't read the King James at all. I don't like it because I don't speak Old English. It's not the way I talk, and it's not the way I understand things. But if you want something that sounds like how we talk in everyday language today, you would like the NLT or the NIV, which is pretty much what I prefer to read. At the end of the day, though, it's all the same story about God. This is what I'm trying to stress. And about Jesus and how people are supposed to live. So really, don't stress that much about the translation. Find one that makes sense to you and run with it and use it and read it. The message is, it's not going anywhere. Alright, so that's it for today. I wanted to clear that up. I hear especially lots of Muslims saying, oh, you guys have so many different versions of the Bible and there's only one Quran. Well, that's actually not true. We only have one manuscript. We have many different copies of the same manuscripts. So these are all original, the same. This is all that everybody uses to translate the different translations of the Bible. It'd be the same way like if you translated the Bible into Hebrew or into Spanish or into Arabic or into any language. It's just a different translation. It's just a different kind of English. It's just a different way to read it. That's really all it is. That's really all the difference. And I'm telling you, if you're somebody that's stuck on this and you're like, no, there's a million different translations of the Bible, we can't trust any of them, how can we know what to trust? It's not like a game of telephone. That's not what happened. That's not what we're doing here. You need to just go to Bible Hub, look up any verse, look up any amount, look up every single verse if you want, and go and compare all the different versions, and you're gonna see how much the same they all are. They're really, really, really not that much different, and the ideas and the communication of what it means is not different at all, and it's very clear what these things mean. Now, the reason why you may see people arguing about Bible interpretation, that's a whole nother thing. Bible interpretation, how you interpret the Bible, is completely different than the translations and the versions argument. A lot of Christians don't know how to translate the Bible, don't know how to interpret it properly. A lot of them will interpret it based on what they want it to say. They'll read themselves into the text. That's not the way that you translate the Bible at all. So that's a problem. That's why I hear a lot of people interpreting it differently, but that has nothing to do with the versions or the translations. That's a whole nother video. We can talk about that another time. But the bottom line is, if you've got a favorite translation or one you've been curious about, let me know in the comments. And if you like this, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.